You're crouched in tall grass, 5 million years ago, and the sun just dropped below the horizon. No walls around you. No door to lock. Somewhere close, something with a bite that could snap your forearm in half is deciding whether you're worth the effort. You have no fire. Not yet. This is every single night. For hundreds of thousands of years, before your ancestors figured out how to hold flame in their hands. Right now you're reading this in a lit room, maybe under a blanket, maybe with a door between you and the dark. None of that existed for most of human history. For nearly 2 million years, the genus Homo walked the earth without dependable control of fire. No cooked food, no light after sunset, no heat source, no predator deterrent. So, how did they survive? The obvious answer feels wrong the moment you sit with it. They weren't the fastest animals on the savannah. They weren't the strongest. They didn't have claws, thick hides, or venom. And yet they made it, long enough to eventually become you. The real question isn't whether they survived. It's what they were doing instead of the one thing everyone assumes kept them alive. In 2011, researchers led by Francesco Berna at Boston University examined burnt bone and ash inside Wonderwork Cave in South Africa's Northern Cape, work that built on decades of excavation at the site. The traces dated back roughly 1 million years, and a newer analysis led by Leora Kolska-Horwitz of Hebrew University pushed the picture back even further, to deposits between 107 and 179 million years old. That's the ceiling. Below it, for hundreds of thousands of years of hominin history, there's effectively nothing. No hearths, no consistent fire use at all. So what filled that gap? Everyone assumes early humans just froze, starved, or got eaten until fire saved them. The truth is stranger. Biology had already started rewriting itself to cope with a fireless world, long before flame entered the picture. Take the body. A modern chimpanzee spends close to 6 hours a day chewing raw food just to extract enough calories to function. Richard Wrangham, a biological anthropologist at Harvard, calculated that an early Homo erectus eating raw plants and meat would have needed to consume around 12 pounds of food a day to survive, food that took hours of grinding just to break down. Somewhere between 2 million and 800,000 years ago, jaws shrank. Guts shrank. Teeth got smaller. That's not what happens to an animal getting weaker. That's what happens to an animal solving a problem a different way. So what was the workaround, if not fire? Slicing, pounding, just cutting meat with a stone flake, no heat involved, cuts chewing time by close to 17%, and the force needed to chew it by roughly 26%. According to research out of Harvard's Human Evolutionary Biology department, a sharp rock and repetitive motion did part of the job fire would later finish. It wasn't as efficient. It didn't kill pathogens, but it bought enough calories and enough time to matter. Here's where it gets stranger. The lack of fire didn't just shape diet, it shaped how early humans hunted in the first place. And the method barely resembles hunting as most people picture it. Humans have more sweat glands per square inch than almost any other mammal on Earth. Daniel Lieberman, an evolutionary biologist at Harvard, has spent decades studying what that made possible. Persistence hunting. No spear throw. No ambush. Just tracking an animal, often an antelope or a wildebeest, for hours. Sometimes most of a day. In the heat. Until its body gave out from overheating before the hunters did. A horse can outrun a human over 100 meters. Over 20 miles in the midday sun, the horse loses. That's the part that rarely makes it into the story. Early humans weren't dangerous because of teeth or speed. They were dangerous because they didn't need to stop. Everyone pictures early humans as prey, cowering from predators in the dark. The truth is more complicated. They were prey and predator and scavenger, sometimes all in the same afternoon. Fossil evidence from sites in Georgia and southern Europe shows Homo erectus living alongside saber-toothed cats like Machairodus, animals that could weigh over 1,000 pounds, more than twice the weight of the largest tiger alive today. Research published in scientific reports modeled how hominins likely survived encounters like these, not by fighting, but by banding together in numbers large enough to scavenge a kill and hold it against hyenas before the cats came back for it. So how did they make it through the nights specifically? When a body can't outrun anything and can't sweat its way out of an ambush? This is the twist most people miss entirely. It wasn't fire that got them through the dark for those first 1,000,000+ years. It was math. The boring, unglamorous math of numbers. Sleeping in groups, taking turns on watch, staying close enough together that a lone predator had to gamble against dozens of pairs of eyes instead of one. Vigilance was the technology. It didn't require flame. It required trust in the people lying next to you. That's the turn the whole story pivots on. Everyone frames this as how did they survive without fire? As if fire were the missing ingredient the whole time. But the deposits at Wonderwork Cave and the physical evidence written into the human body itself tell a different story. The body adapted first. The behavior adapted first. Fire didn't rescue an otherwise doomed species. It arrived late, to a species that had already spent nearly 1 million years proving it didn't strictly need it. So the real weapon was never a single tool. It wasn't the flame everyone assumes came first. It was slicing meat with a sharpened rock, running an antelope into the ground under the noon sun, and sleeping shoulder to shoulder with people who'd notice if you didn't wake up. Go back to that grass, that dropped sun, that unseen thing, deciding whether you're worth the risk. The fire you're picturing isn't there yet. What's keeping you alive is the person breathing next to you, and the 12 others scattered around the same patch of ground, awake in shifts, watching the same dark. Somewhere in that arrangement, long before anyone learned to hold a flame, humanity had already found its first form of warmth. We think of fire as the thing that saved us. Really, it was just the moment we stopped having to save each other quite so often.